All right, let's move on to the tech news of the day. Yesterday, we talked all about the iPad breach and the email leak, and we declined to even name the security company involved because we thought they were so sketchy and sleazy about this whole thing. Well, it turns out Goatse Security would like to respond.
Yes, they, although
Not to us, to everyone.
It is an unsigned note here, but we suspect it's from one of the founders, but he didn't put his name in here, so I'm not going to. And they have said, now, what's important here is that the FBI is involved in this. Because, of course, you get FBI email addresses from FBI users, and then they're like, hey, wait a minute.
So they'll come after you.
There's this interesting post up on the goatse.fr blog on disclosure ethics. The point being that what they're saying is that we did not give this information to
AT&T.
To AT&T with. We gave it to them first, or rather, we made sure that they had it before we went to the press.
Right.
Although they didn't address AT&T directly, they made sure that AT&T had it and had patched the hole, and then they gave the information, including the list of hacked emails, to Gawker journalist Ryan Tate, who then they said appropriately redacted the information, and then they erased it from their own services, so they don't have it anymore. So they're saying, look, this was a serious hack. We wanted to make sure that AT&T addressed it. We did not feel it was appropriate for us to approach AT&T directly, and no other journalists would have us. So we made sure that through back channels, AT&T had the information, had plugged the hole, and then we released it. Still a little sketchy, but it's beginning to become a much more interesting and much more nuanced story than it was at first.
They also said all data was gathered from a public web server with no password accessible by anyone on the internet. There was no breach, intrusion, or penetration by any means of the word, because people had really said they used a brute force attack, and they actually carried out kind of an unusual hack, and they're saying that is not what we did.
Yeah. Well, it was a script attack, and
definitely.
And they did deliver a table of 114,000 email addresses to a journalist, such as it is. So, it's not they're not shining white knights here. Although they did, I will argue on their I will agree with them on their behalf that they did the world a service by forcing the matter, and they could have done it in a much more sketchy fashion than they did. Not shining white light here, but neither are these guys the evil hackers that they've been made out to be by some other people.
I was kind of surprised that they had apparently gotten that much negative blowback that they felt like they needed to come out and say that.
Yeah. Well, I think it was more
because we were jerks about it, but mainly because we didn't want anyone to accidentally go to that website.
Yeah. Also, I think it was because it was more of the mainstream media of how it was being portrayed on TV. It was just hacked. So everyone was going to throw a negative thing their way. So that's probably why they also came out to explain, like you said, some of the nuances of what they did.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing that the biggest sticking point for me, I said there are two. One is that instead they actually gave the email addresses to Gawker, which they didn't leak out, but that was a little sketchy. And the other thing
they could have redacted them themselves.
That the reason they give for not going to AT&T is not fully explained.
Right.
So
and not going to them first.
They said that they made sure that AT&T had the information before they went to the press, but they themselves did not go to AT&T. What did he say here? We did not contact AT&T directly, but we made sure that someone else tipped them off. This is as nice guy as it gets. We had no interest in direct dialogue with AT&T, but we waited nicely for them to get their house in order and get their whole plug tight before exposing it.
Okay.
All right, I'll give them a B minus on ethics there.
Well, they probably also are coming out so strongly because, as we mentioned, the FBI has opened the investigation into the possible security breach, how bad it could potentially be. They're looking into, the possibilities that it could extend farther. I mean, really, and I think as Rafe pointed out, it seems like the biggest reason they're involved is because they're involved.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Some of those email addresses were military and DOJ, and I think that freaked them out. But it doesn't. I mean, I guess we'll see, right? We'll see what that investigation turns up.
Yeah. I just hope that nobody manages to figure out a way to pair an email address with a iPad 3G ID and figure out a way to hack it. That would be bad. And that's the big fear. But at this point, I don't think it looks like that's possible. It's just basically the mother of all spam lists.
Yeah, exactly.
Which Gawker now owns.
And it sounds like that's what the FBI is looking into, if anything, is whether there is that possibility to draw that conclusion, make that connection, and actually hack the device itself.
Yeah.
Which we had an emailer say, didn't Obama have to jump through, a bajillion hoops even to get a BlackBerry? And
He did.
And then you've got the White House chief of staff like just rolling up with a 3G enabled iPad. I mean, that does actually seem like
They're like, hey, look what I got. This is a fun toy. Cool, guys.
This is super. I mean, it's totally it's always on. It's connected to the internet. Like I'm sure anybody. But
didn't they say that a lot of them had it because they were good for displaying PDFs?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Like seriously,
Yes. I bet they are.
I recall hearing that.
And we all know how secure PDFs are.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's a giant cliff in protection, electronic protection, after the president, chief of staff. It just drops really fast, because then you get a really large organization, and these people need to be connected. They're in the government; that's their job, and you can't protect everybody. So yeah, the president getting a BlackBerry is a big deal.
Right.
But 2 levels down, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, sure, want a Mac? Go for it.
Yeah. Okay, iPad
To an extent. I mean, I know the White House network is very locked down.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will have a little E3 preview plus exclusive pictures, not our exclusive, of the Motorola Droid 2.